Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. We have quite an eventful and jam-packed show for you all, as the Chargers got it done against the Giants, but that's no surprise. But tonight, they take on the Kansas City Chiefs for AFC West supremacy. And how about the Rams making me eat crow as they beat the Cardinals? I am actually surprised they actually got the job done. Can they do the same thing against the Seahawks? And how about the Anaheim Ducks flying high as they are all alone in first place in the Pacific Division? And how about the Lakers, even though they're not as good as the Warriors and all the other teams? But how about Austin Reeves' game winner last night? Big time, amazing shot for the undrafted. All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And what is happening, ladies and gentlemen, podcast listeners of all ages? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for tuning in on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. I know it's not Friday, but I had to rearrange the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, and I think it's quite fitting to have the SoCal Supreme Sports Show today as opposed to tomorrow. So now, without any further delay, let's get on into the Southern California sports action. But first and foremost, we have a word from our sponsors. The first sponsor is from the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get the second chance you have been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow them on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at Southern California_Warriors, and on Facebook by typing in the word Southern California and then Warriors. And they're all really cool people. Shout out to Coach Oki. Shout out to Larry B, who's in the chat room, who's a part of the SoCal Warriors. I've been to a couple of games, and it's really fun. Like, semi-pro football is vastly underrated. Just gotta throw that out there. The second sponsor for IE Sports Radio is Background Check International Businesses. Are you looking to background check a new hire on? Let Kit Freeman take care of that for you. Kit has founded and managed Background Check International Businesses since 1994 and is here to help you with the screening process. Contact Kit and let him help make the hiring process that much easier. This business is used for professional background checks and not for the use of any crimes such as identity theft or other illegal activity. They do not have Twitter or Instagram, but they do have the Book of Faces, as you can find them on Facebook by typing in the word background, then Czech, then international, then a nice little dash, then BCI. And then they also have their website, www.bcint.com. And you can follow iSports Radio on Twitter and on Instagram at iSports Radio, and on Facebook by typing in the word IE, then sports, then radio in the search bar. And when you go to iSports Radio's website, www.isportsradio.com, you will find a Patreon link. For the last 7.5 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've been by the fans, for the fans, and with your help, we are ready to take the next biggest step. When you go to the website, isportsradio.com, you'll see a Patreon link with 5 different tiers, with the first one starting for $5 a month. This donation gets you a shout-out from all 27 of our shows. Higher tiers include iSports Radio merchandise, access to iSports Radio University, the podcasting university of iSports Radio, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment. Thank you, everyone, for making iSports Radio and continuing to make iSports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. And a big shout to October's Fan of the Month, Turban Patriot. He's a great guy. He is a diehard Patriots fan, diehard Boston fan. Even everyone in Southern California approves of him being the iSports Radio Fan of the Month. He's just an all-around great guy. He is a great judge for 3 and Out, which will be airing later on today, so definitely do check him out. And also got to give a shout out to the Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised and Marcus Los Great. So thank you to those 2 Patreon supporters for supporting iSports Radio and helping us keep the lights on. Now, without any further delay, let's get on into the Southern California sports action. So, I don't want to be too cliche, but we got to start with the Chargers, just because one of the biggest reasons I decided to move SoCal Supreme Sports Show today was because the Chargers are playing today, and also I have something else going on Friday, and I don't think I'm going to be in commission to do the SoCal Supreme Sports Show tomorrow. But the Chargers, to no one's surprise, defeated the New York Giants 37-21, and a majority of those points were scored in garbage time for the Giants. Like, this game was over by the time the fourth quarter rolled around. Like, the Chargers didn't have too much to worry, as the Giants started Mike Glennon, and even though they also had Saquon Barkley, they were without quite a good number of their players, such as Tony and Daniel Jones, the actual starting quarterback. So the Chargers just straight up rolled to victory. This is probably their most guaranteed victory they'll probably have, other than like the Texans. And that's not me being mean, it's just what it is. And I don't even know if Daniel Jones had played, I don't know if he would have made too much of a difference. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but the Giants are just not that great of a team. And it kind of has shown within their record. But they almost beat the Chiefs, so I'll give them that much. Now, if Saquon were a little bit healthier, I think it would have been a little bit more different bit of a storyline. So, all in all, for the Chargers, they didn't have much to worry about. It was 7-7, and that was as close as the Giants got, because the Chargers scored 30 unanswered points, and they didn't even have Derwin James, who was out as he suffered, I think it was a hamstring injury on Saturday. And then Keenan Allen, unfortunately, was out due to COVID-19 protocols. And fortunately for the Chargers, they got a big help from Jalen Guyton, who caught this amazing touchdown bomb from Justin Herbert. Like, it was freaking phenomenal. Like, I know everyone else had, like, amazing touchdown passes this past week, like Russell Wilson or Matt Stafford, but Justin Herbert barely got this ball off. Like, if you all see how close he was from getting sacked or strip sacked, you'll see that that throw is very impressive. And that ball was held up in the air for more than 150 feet, and it went for a 65-yard touchdown pass. So It's freaking phenomenal that Justin Herbert continues to improve his game and he continues to make these amazing plays. And I'm just happy he's my quarterback. So I'm not trying to fanboy too much, but it's really amazing how the Chargers have brought out the best in Mr. Justin Herbert. And he didn't even have Keenan Allen. I mean, he also could have gotten Mike Williams involved, but he also got his other wide receiver, or his rookie wide receiver, Joshua Palmer, involved, which was quite impressive. And he also got Jared Cook a touchdown as well. So the Chargers sit at 8-5 as they face the Kansas City Chiefs tonight at 9-4. Something to note from that 8th win of the Chargers is that they have now surpassed last year's win total, which is quite impressive. I mean, nothing against the work that Anthony Lynn did, but I will say this about Brandon Staley. He has improved the Chargers quite a bit, and I could see the Chargers getting at least one, if not two more wins. Tonight is going to be a challenge, however, as the Chiefs have won 6 in a row. And also, the Chargers will be without starting left tackle Rashawn Slater, who tested positive for COVID, but he is vaccinated. But unfortunately, it looks like they're waiting for the final results, and by the time game time rolls around, he's not going to have enough time to find out if he's eligible to play, which really sucks. Like, COVID has been kicking every team's butt, but enough about that. A little bit later, I'll be talking about that. But not having Rashawn Slater is not good because the Chargers need all the offensive line help they can get for Justin Herbert. Like, they cannot allow the Chiefs to get at him every so often because the Chiefs' defense is, I can't believe I'm saying this, the Chiefs' defense is actually doing good. Now, consider this, however. The Chiefs have won 6 in a row, correct? Correct. So, you also have to wonder, though, you look at the competition that the Chiefs have faced. First win against Daniel Jones and the Giants. They barely squeaked that one out. Not that impressive. The second win on that winning streak was against the Green Bay Packers against Jordan Love because Aaron Rodgers was out because of COVID protocols. That's also not impressive. Then they had the Raiders, and Larry, no offense, but everything that... I mean, the first half was competitive for the Raiders and Chiefs, but the second half kind of went downward. No offense, of course, to the Raiders. Like, the Raiders are probably the most impressive wins on this winning streak, and they beat the Raiders twice. And then, the second most impressive wins, because after that win at Las Vegas, the Chiefs beat the Cowboys, which that was an impressive win. I did not think the Chiefs would beat the Cowboys. I thought the Cowboys would come out with a victory, but I guess Dak Prescott and the offense just laid an egg. And then following the win against the Cowboys, it was against the Broncos and Teddy Bridgewater. Not that impressive. And then the last win and the most recent win was against the Las Vegas Raiders and in Kansas City against Derek Carr. Not that impressive just because the Raiders have just been all over the place. And it also didn't help that the Raiders didn't have a few of their players like Darren Waller. I know he wouldn't have made a huge impact, but having that big target like him outside of Hunter Renfrow is huge for an offense to be pivotal. Now, looking at the strength of some of these teams, like the Giants win was just not that... The Giants were under 500. The Packers didn't have Aaron Rodgers, which is a huge difference. The Raiders, no offense, but they weren't that impressive. Like, the first half they were impressive, but then the second half... Against the Cowboys, I will give the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt. They really handled business against the Cowboys. Then against the Broncos, nope. That wasn't all that impressive. It's against Teddy Bridgewater, and the offense looked like stale bread. And then also against the Raiders, well, the Raiders unfortunately raided. That's for another day, though. That's for a little later. But the Chargers do have to face a tough and talented Chiefs team, but that Chiefs team, with its defense, will not have the services of Chris Jones, who's in COVID protocols. L'Jarius Sneed has, I hate to bring this up, but he has a personal issue, and it really sucks that I have to bring this up, and I feel for the guy. His brother passed away, and unfortunately, he's not playing tonight. He didn't play against the Raiders, and it sucks. But all my thoughts and prayers go out to the Sneed family, and hopefully he gets back on the field whenever he can. It's always tough to lose someone in your family. Also, back to the Chiefs' injury report or final injury report. Willie Gay is out with COVID protocols, and Chardavius Ward was added to the injury list with an illness. I don't think it's COVID related, but he's also questionable tonight. I think he'll be a game time decision. Now, the Chargers also have some game time decisions of their own, as Austin Eckler, Derwin James, and Asante Samuel Jr. are all questionable. Eckler has battled an ankle injury, as he's had to take a lot of heavy workloads, which is why the Chargers should get a reliable running back too. I've been trying to get the Chargers to do so, but it's just not working. They should have signed Phillip Lindsay, man. And then Derwin James is questionable or game time decision with a hamstring injury. I presume he'll play. Eckler is most likely going to play. And then Asante Samuel with the concussion is also a game time decision. Samuel practiced in limited fashion all week, while Derwin and Eckler didn't practice on Monday, and then they were limited on Tuesday and Wednesday. That could be huge, because the Chargers can't afford to lose Derwin James against the Chiefs in a big game. They can afford to lose Derwin James against the Giants. That's not too big of a deal. But against the Chiefs, with a lot on the line, not so much. So, for the Chargers, they're really going to have to step it up. And I know their offense can score as much as they can. Their offense can score whenever they want to. My concern is the defense. Can the defense slow down Patrick Mahomes? Can Joey Bosa get to him early and often? Can the Chargers slow down the run game with Derek Gore and running back one, Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Can the Chargers limit Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce? Yes, it's Travis Kelce, not Kelsey. I think everyone has forgotten that. So those are the big million-dollar questions. And it's a huge game for the Chargers, because if they win tonight, they not only have the tiebreaker over the Chiefs, but they're tied for first place in the AFC West with 3 games to go. And that would be huge going forward, because that would put the Chargers in a great position. It would have them control their destiny. And more importantly, I think the Chargers' schedule is way more favorable than that of the Chiefs. Now, you compare the two's remaining schedules. After this week, the Chargers have the Texans. Well, they're at Houston for the Texans. Should be a fairly easy win, with Tyrod Taylor sitting or being benched, and the running back core just not being all that impressive. And then the following week, the Chargers are back at home against the Denver Broncos, which could be a 50-50 game. And then the last game of the season is against the Raiders. Now, the Raiders and the Broncos are both interesting suspects, just because the Broncos still have postseason aspirations, and the Raiders have a minuscule amount of postseason aspirations. But for the Chargers, they have to get the job done. Before they can look ahead to those 3 games, they have to get it done tonight. The game is going to be at SoFi, so they don't have to fly anywhere or do anything of that sort. But I think it's going to be tricky, just because the Chiefs are a much better team than they were back in week number 3. In week 3, the Chiefs were coming off of a loss to the Ravens. This go-around, the Chiefs are coming off of a beatdown of the Raiders, and they're on a 6-game winning streak. All of those games, the Chiefs have not allowed their opponents to score more than 20 points. it's rather amazing. Matter of fact, let me rephrase that. The Chiefs have not allowed their opponents to cross 20 points. The most they've given up was 17, and that was to the Giants, which I don't even know how the Giants nearly won that one. But all in all, for the Chargers, their work is going to be cut out. The defense really has to step up. There's no better way of saying that. And it's obviously going to be mostly Chiefs fans, but the games are won on the field, not in the stands. So, man, this is going to be... It's tough to predict this game. Like, part of me thinks the Chargers can win, but part of me thinks the Chargers might lose this one in close fashion. I really just don't want it to be a blowout on either side. Like, if the Chargers blow out the Chiefs, that's fine, but if this is a highly anticipated game, I would just hate to see one team blowing out the other. And also, this is a testament to the defense. I don't want to not make this too high scoring, but at the same time, I don't want to... I can see this being high scoring just because the Chargers defense hasn't been all that great, and the Chiefs defense has suffered some major slings and arrows, so I'm going to say the Chargers win tonight. Now, this is me kind of being a homer, but I think the Chargers just barely get it done. I think they win 35-31. It's going to be tight, though. Like, the Chargers cannot afford too many mistakes, especially against a very talented team in the Chiefs. And something else to note, and this is an unrelated note to the Chargers, that if the Chiefs win, then the Raiders cannot win the AFC West. Why? Because the Raiders, even if they win out and the Chiefs lose out, the Chiefs have the tiebreaker over the Raiders. That's irrelevant because Vegas isn't in Southern California, though I think they should, but I digress. So that's just a little useless fun fact information, but for the Chargers, I think they get it done, but again, they're going to need to play practically perfect. And again, without the services of left tackle Rashawn Slater, it's going to be tough because the Chiefs still have many talented players like Honey Badger, or I forget his first name, but it's Matthew or Mateo, a.k.a. the guy at LSU, a.k.a. the Honey Badger. So, yeah, the Chargers, even though they won't have 3, maybe 4 top players from the Chiefs defense to deal with, it's going to be tough it's still going to be tough. Like, they cannot afford to, play soft. And they can't afford to give Mahomes time in the pocket. Like, they have to just make him feel uncomfortable. And as much as I don't want to see this being a high-scoring affair, and as much as I want to see the Chargers defense step up to the plate, I think it'll be high-scoring just because both these teams have a lot of good playmakers on their teams that could help produce points. And both these quarterbacks are young. Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert are both the future of the NFL, and I describe this matchup as Thor versus Loki. Thor being Justin Herbert and the Chargers and electricity and whatnot and thunder, while Loki being the trickster god, a.k.a. Patrick Mahomes, who manages to find ways to elude danger and whatnot. So, all in all, I have the Chargers winning tonight, but I would not be surprised if this game was decided by one score. Larry says in the chat room, Raiders are trash. Unfortunately, they are. They may have a shot this weekend, but we'll have to see. But all in all, that's my little take on the Chargers. Let's jump to the LA Rams, and I'm just going to say this. I was wrong. I was wrong about the Rams and them losing. I said they'd lose 34-31. I was wrong. Also on 3 and Out, just as a side note, I said the Rams would win 31-27. But I will say that I was previously wrong, and I will eat my crow. So, all in all for the Rams, it was a huge win. And the best part about the win is that they did not have the services of a good majority of their players, as they did not have Darrell Henderson, their running back 1, Tyler Higbee, their tight end 1, and their key piece to their defense, Jalen Ramsey, who in my mind, was a crushing loss, as he is the spark. He's basically the straw that stirs the Rams' defense's drink. But the fact that Aaron Donald came up big against Kyler Murray, and the offense was able to produce a good showing. And Matt Stafford did not throw an interception, and he also did not throw a pick six, which is basically the same as throwing an interception, but I digress. So that was probably their biggest statement win since Week 3 against Tampa Bay. So I'm very impressed at what the Rams brought to the table on Monday. And I thought the spotlight was going to be a little too bright for them, because in their most recent primetime games against the Titans and against the 49ers, they laid an egg. But I think that just goes to show that the Titans were a better team than most people gave them credit for, especially when they lost Derrick Henry. And then the 49ers on paper are legit. I just think that it was just not a good night for the Rams and Matt Stafford, especially when they fell behind 14-0. So this win over the Cardinals is huge, because not only does it give the Rams a little bit more confidence going forward, but it keeps them in the AFC West hunt with 4 games left. So this week, the Cardinals, I know they're not Southern California, but looking at the Cardinals schedule, they play the Detroit Lions. I don't think the Cardinals are going to lose to them. There's no way. I just don't see it. I know Jared Goff has had success over the Cardinals, but he's with a different team. So as for the Rams, they play the Seattle Seahawks at SoFi on Sunday. Now, the Seahawks are an interesting story. They have obviously not had the best season, as the first go-around against the Seahawks for the Rams, Russell Wilson got injured. And ever since that happened, it's been a slew of unfortunate happenings for the Seahawks, as unfortunately they haven't had the season they've liked. And there have been rumblings saying Russell Wilson isn't happy, and Pete Carroll could be on the hot seat, all that stuff. They still have a chance for the playoffs just because the NFC is wide the heck open. And if the Seahawks do get hot, then they could somehow sneak into the playoffs. The NFC is so wide open that even the Giants and I forget who was the other. Oh, the Chicago Bears are in the playoff hunt. That's how ridiculous it is. And yeah, it's rather interesting. So Larry, thank you for informing me, Larry. He says Chardavius Ward is out and CJ is indefinitely still in Kansas City. So that's huge when it comes to the Chargers. So thank you, Larry, for bringing that up. So Chardavius Ward is out, and CJ, Chris Jones is indefinitely. So I don't know what the second part means, but I will say that's huge for the Chargers. That means a lot of an impact for the Chiefs' defense, and more importantly, it means that the Chargers could have their way a little bit more. But the Chargers cannot underestimate the Chiefs. So I still think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. And I should also make note of this, that the Chargers are 2-0 in primetime this year, as they won on Monday Night Football and they won on Sunday Night Football. So now they need to win on Thursday Night Football to complete the trifecta. And also, the Chargers overall are 1-0 with Justin Herbert on Thursday Night Football. Albeit last year's game against the Raiders on Thursday Night Football was a little fluky, just because the Raiders had most of their defensive guys missing, and then Derek Carr got injured, even though Marcus Mariota did an outstanding job taking over, and he deserves a lot of credit. So all in all, the Chargers still need to get the job done. So thank you, Larry, for making me for informing me about that. And I guess I should also throw out this fun fact for the Chiefs right here. Patrick Mahomes is 11-0 against the AFC West on the road, not at home, not overall, on the road. In other words, he hasn't lost at the Raiders, because they kind of were in Oakland, and then eventually now they're at Las Vegas. They haven't lost to the Broncos on the road, and Mahomes hasn't lost to the Chargers on the road. So Larry says this game is going to be chaos. Oh, yeah, I could not agree more. This is facts right here. So anyway, back to the Rams. And big shout out to Amanda J for tuning in. She says she's got the chance to tune in today. Thanks, Amanda. I appreciate it. And I just was wrapping up on the Chargers, jumping over to the Rams. And this actually is good segue to talk about the Rams' schedule and their game against the Seahawks. So against the Seahawks, I don't think it's going to be overly easy. But at the same time, looking at the Rams' schedule, their schedule is rather tough, especially after this week. So the Seahawks game, I think, should be smooth sailing. I just think that Russell Wilson could play his best game. And then also, what the Seahawks did to the 49ers, despite the 49ers being heavy favorites, or mostly heavy favorites, is rather concerning. And then, remember, this is the Rams we're talking about. They're a little inconsistent. Now, looking at the Rams' schedule, their schedule is pretty tough. The following week, next week, the Rams hit the road to Minneapolis to take on Minnesota. Now, while everyone's thinking, well, Minnesota is not the best team out there, I think Minnesota is vastly underrated, because the Vikings, and Amanda, this is probably something I will probably compliment the Vikings on. The Vikings are much better than that 6-7 record shows. First of all, the Vikings have been involved in a lot of close games. As a Chargers fan, I know all too well about those. And more importantly, the Vikings still have a shot at the playoffs, because, like I said, the NFC West is so wide open, and any team can get hot or cold at the right moment. And that can go for the Rams, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the 49ers, anybody. So I don't think that Vikings game is going to be anywhere easy. And then the following week, after the Rams play the Vikings, they take on the Ravens, as they have to travel, well, depending on where they travel from. Like, if the Rams go from Minnesota to Los Angeles, then they have to travel back across the country to Maryland, then it's basically a lot of traveling. But if the Rams go from Minnesota to Maryland, then it's not that all that. It's not that big of a flight, but it's still a trip across the country to take on Baltimore, and that's going to be a tough game. Although the Ravens have been beaten up to heaven and back, they're still finding ways to win, and that's because of one by the name of Lamar Jackson. And yeah. And Amanda says the Vikings are unpredictable. Yep. Same can be said for the Chargers and the Rams too. So, finishing up the Rams schedule, they have the 49ers at home. While that does seem like a fairly easy game for the Rams, the 49ers in years past have basically owned them, as the Rams have lost 5 straight to the 49ers, and they have not beaten the 49ers when Jimmy Garoppolo is quarterback. That is my concern right there. And I know we're probably going to be hearing didn't the Rams beat them back in 2018? Well, yes, but Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't quarterback. If I remember correctly, Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt. So, back to the Seahawks game for the Rams. I think the Rams win this one fairly easily. I think they win, let's say, 28-17. That's my final score. I think it'll be close at halftime, and then when it comes to the second half, I think the Rams pull away. I think Aaron Donald's going to make Russell Wilson's life a living nightmare. Same could be said for Von Miller. I think it might be a nice little reunion after Von Miller and the Broncos weren't able to defeat the Seahawks back in Super Bowl. I think it was 47. It was back in 2013. I'm not going to search all the way back, but regardless, yeah. So my final score is 28-17 in favor of the Rams. The Rams definitely need to keep pace in the AFC West not the AFC West, NFC West and the NFC as a whole. So I think for me, the Rams continue their hot streak. And I say hot a little loosely just because it's only 3 in a row, but that 3-game winning streak is crucial just because they need all the wins they can get in order to win this competitive NFC West race to the finish. And also, they need to have a good standing in the NFC West playoffs as well. Just because if the Rams have to play at Green Bay, that's a problem. If the Rams have to play at Tampa Bay, that could also be a problem. Just because the Bucs have they have had their way of getting revenge on teams that have beaten them with Tom Brady. Now, the Cardinals, if the Rams have to play them in the playoffs at Arizona, that is not overly concerning just because we saw the Rams win at Arizona, and honestly, I think Arizona isn't as invincible as most people give them credit for. Now, obviously, the Cardinals did suffer a big loss as they will be without DeAndre Hopkins for the rest of the regular season, but he should be back in time for the playoffs. And then also, the Cardinals did not have a few other players as well. But now that we're talking about player availability, the Rams got their butts handed to them in terms of COVID, as it got so bad. Like, obviously, COVID has been hitting the entire NFL and NBA and every other sports league hard, as the Rams had serious COVID issues within their program, and it got to the point where they had to shut down practice. So it's not. I'm just gonna say this: screw COVID. I'm just gotta say that out there. Screw COVID. I am sick of this, and I wish it could just stop. Like, I thought we were supposed to be done with COVID, and now the new variant is starting to arise. So, Nelly. So we'll see what happens with the Rams. Hopefully, they can get back on their feet. I think they did activate a couple more players from the COVID-19 list. Like, they still have a couple more days before they face the Seahawks, and I don't think they'll be too concerned with facing the Seahawks. Now, if they have to start John Wolford and they'll be without Aaron Donald, then we've got problems. But the Rams still have Leonard Floyd on defense, and then they also have Von Miller, and then they should get back Jalen Ramsey, which Ramsey actually responded on Twitter that he doesn't even feel sick, that he feels fine. So I think he said he even had the sniffles. Who uses the word the sniffles? Oh, that's pretty funny. Oh, good old Jalen Ramsey. But that's going to pretty much do it for the Rams and the Chargers. I should be a lot more nervous when it comes to the Chargers, but I guess maybe that's because the NCAA women's volleyball semifinals are also on. I'm going to be watching that on my laptop while watching the Chargers on TV. And hopefully I don't have to turn off the Chargers and change the channel, but I digress. So that's that for the NFL portion of the show. Let's jump on into the NCAA football portion of the show, as obviously USC is not bowling this year, so we could just skip over them. But we also have bowl season coming up, as San Diego State will be playing UTSA on Tuesday. By the time this show goes on, San Diego State will have played UTSA. So, or they will be playing UTSA, and I'll have to recap that game. So, for San Diego State and UTSA, UTSA is a 2-point favorite, and this is going to be played. San Diego State is playing in the Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl. And what better place to play this game than at the Toyota Center in Frisco, Texas? So, for me, San Diego State is probably one of the more confusing teams in NCAA football. Like, one week they'll look like gods, and then the next week they'll look like, I don't want to say USC, because I've beaten up a dead horse too much. They look like they shouldn't even be in the top 25. They're there. That's more like it. So, for UTSA, they won their conference, the Conference USA Championship, their first ever in team history, while San Diego was runner-up to Utah State in the Mountain West Conference Championship. So, it's tough to predict this matchup. Like, for me, San Diego State needs to actually have a good, balanced game. Like, first of all, their offense cannot just be run-heavy. Their passing, they have to get the passing game involved, and whether that's Jordan Brookshire or Lucas Johnson, I actually want to see San Diego State have a balanced offense when it comes to running the ball and throwing the ball. And then when it comes to their defense, their defense just cannot have, like, silly penalties. Like, they had, I think it was 5 or 6 15-yard penalties against Utah State. I just couldn't believe it. It's like, bruh. And they were just getting their butts handed to them in penalties all together when it came to Utah State. So, for San Diego State, they just got to limit penalties. Their defense has to play San Diego State defense. If they do that, then they can beat UTSA, because the defense can do its damage whenever it wants, so long as it's not playing down to its competition. The offense is my biggest concern, just because they have had a lot of an offensive ineptitude, not just last year, but they've had their offensive ineptitude games this year as well, which makes me wonder, how the heck is this team still ranked? So, my concern is the offense just needs to get their you-know-what together. And in doing so, they will win the Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl. I just hope they can do so, just because they made it all the way to the Mountain West Conference Championship just to get humiliated, and then to get to this bowl game only to lose to... I mean, I'll say this about UTSA. I've been rather impressed by them, and the fact that they went 12-1 is really impressive. It's really tough to do, and their only loss was to North Texas, but I will say this, it's going to be tough. I have San Diego State winning 24-21. I think it's going to have to come down to a Matt Riza field goal. And then he's going to be the MVP of the game, because San Diego State is going to have to punt multiple times, and eventually they're going to pin UTSA down below the 10-yard line every time for the most part. So that's my bold prediction. Matt Riza gets MVP, and San Diego State wins 24-21. It's going to be tough, though, just because, again, offensive ineptitude, and if the San Diego State special teams has a god-awful day, then that could also be a complete nightmare, because, well, for starters, you just can't do that against a talented team like UTSA, so we'll see what happens. And then as for UCLA, they don't play till the 28th, so I'll hold off on my prediction for UCLA versus North Carolina State, so we'll see. So I also do need to congratulate San Diego State on them signing a very talented running back in Lucky Sutton. That's his name, Lucky Sutton. So he's actually he's actually not going far no, he's not coming from, what I'm trying to say is he's from San Diego. He's not traveling far, as he went to Cathedral Catholic High School and he is committed to San Diego State. So Lucky Sutton is going to be a San Diego State Aztec, and he was a beast of a running back this year. Like, I am very, very excited to see Lucky Sutton get to become an Aztec. So, yay! So, congratulations to Lucky Sutton. I wish you the best of luck at San Diego State, and it just means that San Diego State's going to be running the ball a whole lot more. But, again, I need for them to actually have a balanced offense. Anyway, so on the topic of college football, let's jump back to USC football. I know everyone doesn't want me to talk about this just because their season's over, but their schedule has been released. So the first game of the 2022 schedule for USC is against Rice. I don't know why USC is playing Rice at home, but it must be a homecoming game. Oh my gosh, USC, why are we scheduling this game? Why Rice of all teams? Why not UTSA or someone a little bit better? Like, that's the wrong Texas team. Anyway, so next team for USC that they'll be playing is at Stanford. That's going to be on September 10th. Then they return home to the Coliseum to take on Fresno State. Then they hit the road to Corvallis to take on Oregon State. Then they'll head back home to the Coliseum to take on Arizona State at the beginning of October. And then they'll be at home against Washington State the following week. Then the following week, USC heads up to Salt Lake City to take on Utah. Then USC has its bye and will play Arizona. I said that weird. Arizona, U of A, and it'll be at Arizona, Tucson. And then USC will return home to take on Cal. And then USC will play Colorado on Veterans Day. And then USC will hit the road for a short while to take on UCLA at the Rose Bowl. And then USC concludes its schedule against Notre Dame. So that's pretty much your USC schedule right there. The Notre Dame game is going to be at the Coliseum. And hopefully USC will get back that jeweled chalet. For USC, I'm not going to really predict their schedule right this minute. I mean, it's kind of tough for me just because anything can happen when it comes to this whole transfer portal and fifth-year option and new commits and injuries and whatnot. So I'll hold off on the predictions for USC. But that's their schedule in a nutshell right there. Might as well get into UCLA's schedule as well, as UCLA released their schedule this upcoming 2020 year, as UCLA will be starting its season off at home against Bowling Green, and then the following week, like UCLA's first 3 games are at home, starting with Bowling Green, followed by Alabama State. I think that's an FCS school, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say that's FCS school. I could be wrong, though. Don't throw tomatoes at me. Anyway, UCLA concludes its homestand against South Alabama from the Sun Belt Conference. And then UCLA hits the road to Colorado to take on the Buffs. And then UCLA will be returning home to take on Washington. Then they'll follow that up with a home game against Utah. Then this is probably their biggest game and their most trickiest game. UCLA will be heading up to Oregon to take on the Ducks, or Eugene to take on Oregon. And then UCLA will return home to take on Stanford. Then UCLA will be heading up to Tempe to take on Arizona State. Then UCLA heads back home to take on Arizona. Then obviously UCLA has their rivalry game against USC. And then UCLA will hit the road up to NorCal to take on Cal. So thank you to Pierre Moss for popping in the chat room. Pierre says Alabama State is FCS. Okay, so I was right, because I did see somewhere that that UCLA was going to schedule an FCS opponent. So that means there are only two teams that from the FBS that have not scheduled an FCS opponent. The first one is Notre Dame, and the second one is USC. Okay, it's not that impressive. Like, come on, people. But prior to that, UCLA, USC, and Notre Dame were the only ones from the FBS that did not schedule an FCS opponent. UCLA has changed that. Thanks, UCLA. I'm just kidding. UCLA could do whatever they want, but I hate that they broke that tradition. So for UCLA, I'm not going to make predictions for their schedule. Their schedule looks rather promising, however, depending on what Arizona. I mean, I know Arizona State's going to continue to have Jalen. Blanking on his last name, but their starting quarterback is returning. But Arizona State could be a tough matchup. Oregon's obviously going to be a tough matchup. Hopefully, for USC's sake, they'll be a tough matchup, and Utah will also be the reigning Pac-12 champions. So, and then you never know with what Washington has to offer. I still find it weird that USC and UCLA are playing different opponents. Like, why? I don't know why USC has to play Oregon State and UCLA has to play Oregon and whatnot, and then also USC has to play Washington State, and then UCLA has to play Washington. So Daniels, that's who I was thinking of, Jaden Daniels. Yeah, thanks, Pierre. So appreciate you helping me out, Pierre. I was blanking on his name, and I'm like, this guy is from Southern California. Like, come on. So yeah, Jaden Daniels will be back for Arizona State next year, which is fun times. So again, I'm not going to get into too much of UCLA and USC schedule. My prediction will wait until next year or 1 month from next year when the times come out, and depending on which teams are facing off one another in prime time. So we'll see how it goes. So that is going to do it for some college football. Let's jump to the NHL, which, if you all had the Anaheim Ducks doing well this season on your bingo card, congratulations. So the Ducks are actually in first place in the Pacific Division. Let me say that again. The Ducks are in first place in the Pacific Division. Never thought I'd hear myself say that. So, as of recent, when it comes to their games, the Ducks beat the Kraken last night 4-1, and then on Sunday, the Ducks beat the St. Louis Blues in overtime 3-2. On Saturday, however, the Ducks suffered a tough loss at the hands of the Pittsburgh Penguins as they lost 1-0. So that's pretty much your update for the Anaheim Ducks in terms of their most recent games. As last week I did the show on Friday, and from then on all the way till now were the games that the Anaheim Ducks played in. And Pierre Moss says Zegras is sick. Yes, I definitely agree. Zegras has been a great ad for the Ducks, and it's really showing. It's really paying dividends. So from now all the way until whenever I do the show next, which will most likely be back on next Friday, the Ducks will stay at home starting on Friday against the Arizona Coyotes, or the Coyotes. And then on Monday, the Ducks will be hitting the road to Edmonton to take on the Edmonton Oilers. Tuesday, the Ducks will be staying in Canada to take on the Calgary Flames, which is kind of on their coattails in terms of the Pacific Division. And then on Thursday, the Ducks will be playing the Vancouver Canucks, which will basically round off their Vancouver/Canada excursion. As Amanda says, the Minnesota Wild are hot this season, but we've dropped the last two. Yeah, I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But, Yeah, I totally agree. The Minnesota Wild are a close second when it comes to being hot when it comes to the Western Conference. As of right now, the Minnesota Wild and the Anaheim Ducks are both tied for first in the Western Conference. However, Minnesota has the better record as they have 19 wins, 8 losses, and only 1 overtime loss. The Ducks, on the other hand, have 17 wins, 9 losses, and 5 losses in overtime, as both teams have 39 points. Calgary is, as I've basically mentioned, they're kind of on their coattails. They are in 5th in the Western Conference, but they're not too far back from them. They have 36 points. St. Louis and Colorado are also on the coattails of the Ducks, as St. Louis and Colorado have 2 and 3 less points than the Ducks do. So there's that. And Pierre says his New York Rangers are in first place in a loaded Metro division. Yes, that is indeed correct, as the Metro division is very loaded. They're neck and neck with Washington, but the Rangers have the better record. So tough tamale, Washington. So anyway, and overall in the Eastern Conference, the Rangers are only 1 point behind Toronto. So good stuff for the Rangers. And then as for the Kings, so Amanda did mention that the Minnesota Wild have dropped the last couple games that they've played in. One of those games actually came against the LA Kings, as going back from last Friday all the way till now, the Kings split their 2 games, as the Kings most recently lost to the Lightning 3-2 in overtime. So the Kings did salvage a point, but they kind of fell short on the road. And then the Kings also, like I said, they beat the Wild 2-1. So, like I mentioned last episode, the Kings have quite a gauntlet of a schedule as of right now. The Kings tonight are at Florida to take on the Panthers. I almost said Carolina, but I controlled myself. And then on Saturday, the Kings are heading up to Carolina to take on the Hurricanes. It's another tough matchup. And then on Sunday, the Kings will be heading up to the nation's capital to take on Washington. And like I said, it gets tough from here on out, as the Kings next Wednesday will be taking on the Edmonton Oilers on TNT, so that's a nationally televised game. And then the Kings will be heading to the City of Lights to take on the Vegas Golden Knights. And the Kings don't really have a bit of a breather game until they face the Coyotes. But for the rest of this month, outside of the Canucks, the Canucks and the Coyotes, the Kings have quite the challenge on their hands. So currently where the Kings stand, the Kings are in 6th place in the Pacific Division. I almost said 5th, but my eyes aren't working. But the Kings are 6th in the Pacific Division. They have 12 wins, 10 losses, and 5 losses in overtime, and they have 29 points overall. So if the season ended today, the Kings would be out of the playoff hunt, or would be out of the playoffs in general. So there's that right there for the Kings. There's still plenty of time, and the Kings have slightly improved, but the Ducks have basically made a bigger jump to them, honestly. So the Ducks and the Wild as well. So all in all, for the Kings, they still have plenty of time to improve themselves, but can they really? I mean, looking at the Pacific Division, it's so loaded. Like, even Calgary, the Golden Knights, Edmonton, they're legit. And even the San Jose Sharks aren't all that bad. And then obviously you have the Ducks, so we'll see what happens on which team gets hot and which team gets cold. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully we'll see the Kings higher than 6th place. So that's going to be it for the NHL portion of the show. We're actually going to take ourselves a quick commercial break. When we come back, we've got some college hoops to talk about when it comes to USC and UCLA. And we've also got the Dum Dum of the Week award. So you are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for tuning in once again. I really do appreciate you all. Going back into the chat room, Pierre said that he was looking forward to the Chargers game against the Chiefs. He says, go Chargers. Hey, I appreciate it, Pierre. So Now let's jump to segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, as we'll jump to the NBA. I said I was going to jump to the NCAA men's basketball, but let's quickly jump to the NBA, as we have the Lakers and Clippers, which they're both having meh seasons. Like, that's the best word to describe them. Meh. Like, they're not bad seasons, but they're certainly not great seasons, as the Lakers, on the other hand, have been rather hot. Like, going back to when I last did this show, they've actually won the last 3 games, which is a miracle. So, last Friday, the Lakers defeated the Oklahoma City Thunder, which was actually a miracle because they had been 0-2 against the Thunder. But the Lakers defeated the Thunder 116-95 at Oklahoma City, aka the Panhandle State. And then this past Sunday, the Lakers defeated the Orlando Magic 106-94. And then yesterday, the Lakers defeated the Dallas Mavericks in overtime as they won 107-104 off of a game-winning three-pointer from Austin Reeves, an undrafted rookie from Arkansas. I'm not kidding you. Undrafted rookie from Arkansas actually won the game for the Lakers. It wasn't Russell Westbrook or LeBron or AD. It was Austin Reeves. And to my knowledge, he made 5 out of 6 3-pointers, which was absolutely awesome. And what a great moment for the undrafted rookie. Like, that's just freaking amazing. Yeah, he was 5 for 6 from three-point land, and all of his field goal attempts were from downtown, as he finished with 15 points. He chipped in 7 boards as well. And once again, it was awesome sauce. As Larry says, both teams suck. Yes, both the Lakers and the Clippers suck, but it is what it is. So, looking ahead to the Lakers games all the way until next Friday, the Lakers will be hitting the road to Minneapolis to take on the Minnesota Timberwolves on Friday. And then on Sunday, the Lakers will be hitting the road to the Windy City to take on the Chicago Bulls. And then on Tuesday, the Lakers will return home to Staples Center to take on the Phoenix Suns, in hopefully a game they actually can show up to. And then next Thursday, the Lakers will be staying at home to take on the San Antonio Spurs. So that's the good news for the Lakers. The Lakers have won a good portion of games, and I am happy face, and I am happy the Lakers are actually starting to win. That's the good news. You want to know what the bad news is? The Lakers currently at the moment have quite a number of players on the COVID reserve list. They include Russell Westbrook, Avery Bradley, Malik Monk, Dwight Howard, and Talen Horton-Tucker. My good golly gracious, this is what I mean that COVID has been kicking everyone's butt, not just in the NFL, but in the NBA, and it's really concerning. Like, losing Avery Bradley, that's pretty much the heart of the Lakers defense. Losing Talen Horton-Tucker is basically the fiery passion or the straw that stirs the Lakers' drink. Losing Westbrook is basically one of the igniters. And then losing Dwight Howard is veteran presence, and also losing Malik Monk is their perimeter shooter, or one of their wing players. Amanda says, go Minnesota. If the Vikings weren't playing that night, she'd try to go. Yeah, it's not looking too good for the Lakers, because losing 5 players to COVID, or the COVID protocols, is no bueno, and I am very concerned. So we'll see what happens. But all in all, for the Lakers, there's still plenty of time for them to catch up. But, oh my good golly gracious. Like, 5 players on the COVID reserve list. Like, what did the Lakers do to deserve this? Oh, wait, I know. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to say it. But that's pretty much that for the Lakers. Larry basically said it in the chat room. Both teams suck, and again, the Lakers are still pretty frustrating because last Thursday, I already talked about this last week, the Lakers lost to the Memphis Grizzlies. And while the Grizzlies are indeed good, the Grizzlies unfortunately did not have Ja Morant, and the Lakers got their clocks cleaned out, which, oh my God, Lakers, you're killing me. But that's pretty much that for the Lakers. Now we jump on over to the Clippers. So going back to last week when I last did the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, they went 2-1 with their games. As last Saturday they edged the Clippers edged the Orlando Magic 106 to 104, as they needed Reggie Jackson to hit a game winner to get the Clippers the victory. And then on Monday, the Clippers defeated the Phoenix Suns 111 to 95. Against the Suns, I will say this about the Suns: they were missing quite a number of players. Now, I don't think it was COVID related, as DeAndre Ayton was out due to illness, which I don't think was COVID related. And then I want to say, what's his face was. Devin Booker was out with a strained left hamstring, and that's basically the heartbeat of your team, because the Suns didn't really have too many players hitting double digits, as they only had Cam Johnson, Cam Payne, JaVale McGee, and Mikal Bridges all cracking double digits, and that was it. The Clippers, on the other hand, they do not have at the moment, what's their face? Paul George, which they're already without Kawhi Leonard, so not having Paul George really is no bueno. And as a result, the Clippers, they just couldn't keep up last night with the Utah Jazz, as they fell to the Jazz 124 to 103. Yeah, I kind of feared that the Jazz were going to be a tough one, just because, fun fact about the Jazz, they've won 8 in a row now. They came in having won not 7 in a row last night prior, but that win over the Clippers just solidifies the Jazz being one of the more hotter teams. So, yeah, it was a tough one for the Clippers, as the Clippers will be back in action on Saturday to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder on the road. And then on Monday, the Clippers will be taking on the Spurs at home. And then, depending on if this game gets played, because I did hear that this team did have a COVID breakout, the Sacramento Kings will be the home opponent against the Los Angeles Clippers next Wednesday. And then after that, the Clippers don't have another game until they face the Nuggets. So, cool. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Clippers. Like I said, for the Lakers, there's still plenty of time for them to get back in action. Hopefully this injury isn't so serious for Paul George. I actually found this injury out on Monday. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. And I'm like, oh my gosh, losing Paul George is not good news. It just means that everyone else is going to have to step up. Like Reggie Jackson, Luke Kennard, Nick Batum, Eric Bledsoe. So, Serge Ibaka, the list goes on and on. So, we'll see what happens with the Clippers going forward, as we'll circle the wagons back to them in a little bit. So, jumping over to some NCAA men's basketball action right now. So, this past week, USC is still undefeated. Yes, still undefeated, as they took on the two Big West Conference teams in their most recent games, and they were victorious in both of them. Now, my concern is for USC is this: why did they have to play these games so close? So, this past Sunday, USC defeated Long Beach State, my alma mater, 73 to 62. That score is a lot closer than it needed to be, because at halftime, both teams were knotted up at 38 apiece. Now, maybe it's because Long Beach State had motivation. Maybe it's also because Long Beach State didn't have much to lose. Maybe USC was just coasting through that game. Maybe USC was on cruise control. But I didn't really expect for them to be that close to to Long Beach State. I thought USC was going to blow the doors off of them, especially coming off of a big win against Washington State from this past week. And then they also beat Eastern Kentucky, but it wasn't by that much. So, all in all, I was a little surprised to see USC playing Long Beach State that close, but USC did get the win, and They moved to 10-0 as they actually got moved up in the AP poll, as they are now number 10 in the AP coaches poll. Now, their most recent game, which was yesterday against UC Irvine, was rather closer, as USC did win 66-61. However, they were down 38-20 or 36-28 at halftime. I'm sorry, and this is no knock to UC Irvine, but USC should not be playing that team rather close. Yes, UC Irvine is one of the better teams in the Big West Conference. Yes, UC Irvine is well coached. Yes, UC Irvine has quite a number of good players, but the number 10 team at home should not be struggling. I was looking at this game, I'm like, wait a minute. USC is losing to UC Irvine? For a number 10 team in the AP coaches poll, I'm a little concerned. I mean, it's one thing to play a close game against a talented Washington State team on the road, but to be at home and playing a team such as Long Beach State or UC Irvine, I kind of wonder why USC didn't win by more. And again, I have to tip my hat to both Long Beach State and UC Irvine. Both of those teams really played their hearts out on the road against USC, but I think USC is much better than only beating UC Irvine by 5 and needing a couple of clutch jumpers to pull away from the Anteaters, and also needing a big second half splurge in order to defeat Long Beach State. So my message for USC is do a little better. I know wins are wins, and they're not easy to come by, especially after how Bama lost to Memphis of all teams. Jiminy Christmas. Ugh. But still. So USC will be heading on over to the Jerry Colangelo Classic to take on Georgia Tech on Saturday. As this will apparently be Georgia Tech's toughest test. And this game will be played at the Footprint Center in Phoenix, Arizona. So pack a bunch of water for those that are going to this game. And then on Tuesday, I don't know if anyone else is going to be spending their Christmas or their holiday week doing this, but USC will be hitting the road to take on Oklahoma State, which I think that's going to be a much tougher game than it appears to be. Yes, Oklahoma State lost a few of their guys to the NBA draft, but I still think it's going to be rather tough. I mean, Oklahoma State comes from that Big 12 conference, and you never know what can happen in said conference. So we'll see how it goes. And then Oklahoma State has another challenge ahead of themselves before they play USC, as they play Houston, number 14 Houston, which it would be rather interesting to see how that goes. So we'll see what USC brings to the table. We'll see what Oklahoma State brings to the table. But as for UCLA won its game last Saturday against Marquette, as they won 67-56. Marquette is always perennially good. And Pierre, I don't know if you're hearing this, but I'm pretty sure those Big East teams are nothing to sneeze at. Like, Creighton's good. Marquette, I hear, is always good. Georgetown is super legit. I think DePaul is up there. Seton Hall is great. I think when it comes to NCAA men's basketball, the Big East is probably one of the best non-Power 5 conferences in the nation. But that's just my take. Pierre's the bigger Big East expert. So you'd have to ask Pierre Moss. But as for UCLA in its current state, UCLA actually was supposed to play Alabama State yesterday. But unfortunately, due to COVID protocols, and this was actually before the game had started, UCLA, I think like minutes before tip-off, got word from its athletic director Jarmond, and Martin Jarmond, and he said that the game was canceled and there was not going to be a game. And this was minutes before tip-off, and then the PA announcer announced that, and then everyone at Pauley Pavilion was rather surprised. It was also rather surprising just because this was supposed to be UCLA's first game at home with fans. So unfortunately, COVID has been kicking everyone's butt to the moon and back. It's not just been from the NBA, it's not just been from the NFL, it's been to NCAA men's basketball programs, and hopefully not the NCAA football programs. So we do gotta do our part with limiting COVID and whatnot. So yeah. This also puts UCLA's matchup against North Carolina in jeopardy as well, just because that's on Saturday, and if UCLA doesn't get the green light to hit the road to North Carolina, then, or wherever they're going to be playing this game in the CBS Sports Classic, the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. My apologies. So the game won't be at North Carolina, it'll be in Las Vegas, but if UCLA does not get the green light to go to Las Vegas, then that game will be canceled, and North Carolina's new opponent will be Kentucky, which is always a great blue blood matchup. And if that were the case, if UCLA North Carolina gets canceled, then UCLA's next game would be next Wednesday against Cal Poly. No. No offense to Cal Poly, but that just doesn't have the same feel. Yes, it would be the first official home game for UCLA. However, I'd rather see UCLA play North Carolina. Like, no one is going to lose sleep over UCLA not playing Alabama State. And this is no offense to Alabama State, but no one's losing sleep to UCLA missing Alabama State. Now, UCLA fans losing sleep to not facing North Carolina, that's another story, just because North Carolina's a blue blood, and unfortunately, Larry put something funny in the chat room that I'll be reading a little later. For UCLA, losing out on playing a tough, talented team like North Carolina would be the pits for them, but all in all, we really got to hope that this isn't too serious for UCLA, because after their little Christmas break, they return to Pac-12 play to take on Arizona, which is currently number 8 in the nation, which, oh boy, that's going to be a doozy of a matchup, and that will be at Pauley Pavilion. So hopefully UCLA gets its you-know-what together, and hopefully this whole COVID situation gets situated here. As Larry says, F UCLA. And he says Alabama State. Yes, Alabama State. Not Alabama, but Alabama State. Even though we all know Alabama lost to Memphis. And I don't know if Memphis has those really cool jerseys like they do when it comes to football, but we'll see. Alright, so that's going to do it for some NCAA men's basketball action. I'm just going to limit it to just USC and UCLA because I don't want to take too long. Some big news, however, when it came to the NWSL, or the National Women's Soccer League. Alex Morgan is signing with the San Diego Wave, as she has left the Orlando Pride and will be going to, or in this case, going back to Cali, as she'll be signing with the San Diego Wave, which is awesome stuff. Or San Diego Wave FC, I'm sorry. San Diego Wave FC, not just San Diego Wave. But it's going to take me a little while to adapt to talking about NWSL, because the NWSL just added San Diego as a team, which is really awesome. And I'm happy to talk about this team. Just like how I'll be happy to talk about the Galaxy and LAFC when they're actually making the postseason. I digress, though. So, yes, SD Wave FC. So there was that little bit of news right there, but that's huge getting Alex Morgan. Everyone knows Alex Morgan is the bomb diggity. So I'll have to keep an eye on some more SD Wave FC news a little bit later, but for now, we have to get into the Dum Dum of the Week Award recipients, as the Dum Dum of the Week Award recipient goes to people or an organization that do dumb things. And no one is safe from this, as anybody can be Dumb Dumb of the Week. And honestly, my neighbor could be Dumb Dumb of the Week, the alley cat could be Dumb Dumb of the Week, the neighbor's dog could be Dumb Dumb of the Week, anybody could be Dumb Dumb of the Week. But there were so many nominees to choose from, honestly. I honestly don't think I could pick one. I have to pick two. No, Larry, we will not have UCLA as Dumb Dumb of the Week award, because that is basically that's not on them. But the first Dumb Dumb of the Week award, and I'll actually give this to honorable mention. I think this will be my honorable mention Dumb Dumb of the Week award, and I'm gonna give it to Larry says Dumb Dumb of the Week award should go to Spanos for moving the Chargers to LA. Well, if that had happened prior, then maybe I would have. But the Dumb Dumb of the Week award honorable mention, and now that Larry mentions an NFL team, is the Las Vegas Raiders. And long story short, remember when Juju Smith-Schuster got blown up for dancing on the logos of the NFL? Well, the Raiders, I guess, went over to the midfield to the logo of the Chiefs and had a meeting there and got fired up. So eventually it did not turn out well for the Raiders, as they wound up losing to the Chiefs 48-9. And long story short, kids, don't disrespect the logo of a team, no matter who it is. Whether it's in college football, high school football, semi-pro football, or just NFL in general, do not disrespect the logo of anyone else. So the Raiders are the honorable mention for Dumb Dumb of the Week. They will not be getting the whole "you are so dumb, you are really dumb" thing. So, well, no, Larry. I'm saying this is the Dumb Dumb of the Week award is for it can go to anyone, not just in Southern California, but in anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. But now that we're on the topic of the NFL, the first Dumb Dumb of the Week award, in my opinion, and this is no knock, it should go to the NFL. So the NFL and Roger Goodell have done a lot of dumb things, and this might actually take the cake. So for those of you that are wondering, yes, COVID has not just been kicking the Rams' butt, but they've been kicking every team's butt. They have been kicking the butts mainly of the Cleveland Browns. They have had multiple players going on the COVID protocol reserve list, as they've had players like Baker Mayfield go on there. They had Case Keenum, their backup quarterback, go on there. It's ridiculous. I am very surprised to see how many players are on the COVID reserve list. And even Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, is now tested positive for COVID, and now he's on the COVID reserve list. It's ridiculous. And you want to know what's worse? The Browns play the Raiders on Saturday. Not on Sunday, on Saturday. It's going to get to the point where the Browns will not be able to have enough to field a team. Like, I don't even know who their third string quarterback is outside of Case Keenum. I don't even remember who they signed. But regardless, the NFL is not doing anything. They're doing nothing to, postpone the game. It's ridiculous. Excuse me. And honestly, I just don't like it. Are they trying to set up the Browns for failure? I think they should have probably moved the game to Sunday, if not Monday, because the Browns can't compete with a team like this. This is a mismatch. Even with how bad the Raiders are, the Browns will be playing a third-string quarterback, and they'll have to bank on their running backs. And they're already without their second-string running back in Kareem Hunt. They now have to play Nick Chubb and Dearness Johnson. So, and Amanda says they need to postpone the game as well. I totally agree. But the NFL is not doing anything. They're saying that the game will still go on as televised, and it's ridiculous. It's like, yes, I know the Browns are in the midst of trying to get a playoff spot. Yes, the Raiders are also still in the hunt for a playoff spot. But there are bigger things in this world than football. Think about the health and safety of the players. But what Roger Goodell and the NFL aren't doing is they are not concerned for the players and the safety of their coaches. And also, it's just ridiculous that the NFL still, all they care about is money and ratings. It's really, really sickening. And for that, I have to make the NFL the first Dum Dum of the Award recipient.
So dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that is the first Dum Dum of the Week award. The second Dum Dum of the Week award is, we're going to end this one on a little bit of a lighter note. So, as we all know, I love my quarterback in Justin Herbert. So, this guy, oh my God, I've never even heard of this guy prior, but oh my good golly gracious, this guy makes me sick. Dan Orlovsky. I have no words to describe this guy. First of all, this guy must be, I don't know who this guy is. I had to look up who he was. Apparently he was a good third-string quarterback who didn't even put up a whole lot of great numbers. And this guy I don't know what Justin Herbert did to tick him off, but I will say this guy is the biggest hater of Justin Herbert out there. Let's take this back to last Sunday. So last Sunday, when the Chargers beat the Bengals 41-22, what Dan Orlovsky said was this: tape, tape, tape. And I quote, tape, tape, tape. Joe Burrow clearly outplayed Justin Herbert, or something along those lines. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he said that Joe Burrow outplayed Justin Herbert. Okay, let's look at the numbers. Joe Burrow, 24 for 40, 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown as well, 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown, 2 interceptions. Justin Herbert, 26 for 35, 317 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and that interception was not all Herbert's fault. Just because, well, he passed the ball to Joshua Palmer, but Shinobi Awuzie ripped the ball out of Palmer's hands, and it was counted as an interception. And you mean to tell me, Dan Orlovsky, that Justin Herbert got outplayed by Joe Burrow? Okay, first of all, this man is talking out of the side of his neck. He did not. Joe Burrow, in Joe Burrow's defense, Joe Burrow had a bad pinky, and he couldn't throw the ball all that well. But Joe Burrow did not outplay Justin Herbert. Herbert had 3 tutties. 3. This man helped orchestrate he helped stop the bleeding when it came to the Chargers blowing their 24-point lead. I don't understand how on earth Joe Burrow outplayed Justin Herbert. It makes no sense. I get that Joe Burrow had a bad pinky, but Justin Herbert has to play with a trash offensive line. No offense to Rashawn Slater and Matt Filer, of course, and some of the other standouts on the offensive line, but I digress. I don't get why Dan Orlovsky is on the Justin Herbert hate train. It makes 0 sense. More importantly, this past week where Justin Herbert had that spectacular throw to Jalen Guyton, which was 65 yards for a touchdown, Dan Orlovsky decided to break out the haterade and say, well, everyone was losing their minds over Justin Herbert. this amazing throw occurred as well, as he showed Matt Stafford throwing the ball to Van Jefferson against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, that throw was spectacular, but you compare the two. Justin Herbert nearly had the ball knocked out of his hands, and the defender was in hot pursuit of him. Matt Stafford had at least 1 to 2 seconds to throw the ball. It's ridiculous how Dan Orlovsky has been showing so much hate to Justin Herbert. And you look at Justin Herbert. The dude has been balling out this year. And the biggest thing in the world is that Justin Herbert is second in terms of his teammates dropping the ball when it comes to his passes. Or should I say the Chargers are second in the NFL behind the Chiefs when it comes to dropped passes. That's not Justin Herbert's fault. Even Keenan Allen acknowledged that. I don't understand what Dan Orlovsky is going on about how Justin Herbert is getting outplayed or he's not spectacular, but I just can't take it. I made the exception of Dan Orlovsky not being Dum-Dum of the Week last week for when he said about Herbert, but the continuation of this Justin Herbert slander will not be tolerated. Dan Orlovsky, I don't know you, you don't know me, but you are this week's Dum-Dum of the Week award recipient number 2.
So dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that, my friends, is all she wrote. Justin Herbert got outplayed by Joe Burrow in a win. I'm starting to lose faith on humanity. I'm just kidding. But that's going to do it for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show for this week. Thank you all for tuning in. Without any further delay, before I lose my mind, it is time we get on out of here, because I got a primetime face-off to attend in about 20 minutes. You dig? Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate everybody tuning in from the chat room, Amanda J, Pierre Moss, and Larry B for popping in. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Larry B. He says, great show as always, brother. Hey, salute to you, Larry B. I will be on 3 and Out in about 20 minutes. Big shout out to everyone that listened all over the world or whenever. If you listen live on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen in the wee hours of the morning, I appreciate you. Next week, we should be back to regular schedule, a.k.a. noon Pacific time on Friday. And I hope to be back with you all. And I'm looking forward to today's primetime face-off. I'm really looking forward to the Chargers. Let's zap those Chiefs back to Kansas City. You all have yourselves a great rest of the weekend. Enjoy the Southern California sports action. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Like I said, have a great weekend. Please do stay safe. Coronavirus is still out and about. Definitely do check out the NCAA Women's Volleyball Tournament as they're in the semifinals. Just had to throw that out there. And I'll see you on Monday for Set Point. Have a great rest of the weekend. And remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!